Is there a magic retirement number that you need to know about? One specifically for you? Well, perhaps, but more importantly, in a world that is volatile and changing, I'm going to give you the time to give you the process for the formula. How you figure out what that needs to look like for you as things change over a period of time. We're going to do that through a snapshot, but we're going to talk about how it is over a financial journey. Well, good morning and welcome back to Consider This Program. I am your host, Joe Clark.
I'm Dean Huddleston.
Dean is our senior advisor in the Lafayette, Indiana market. We are going to put him on the financial planning hot seat. If you want to be one of these participants, we are more than happy to have you. You submit your stuff and we will actually run you through this on a live segment of the show, maybe on a Zoom call where you can actually even be seen. But we want to show you and demonstrate for you how planning actually works in action. So, Dean, here's what you're dealing with. I just walked into the office. I'm 63 years old. I'm married. She's the same age. I earned $150,000 a year. I am going to retire in October of this year. We have $1.4 million in assets. $900,000 of that's in a 401k. $250,000 is inside of a essentially an after-tax account. $250,000 is in cash in a bank, and we have absolutely no debt, no kids we need to worry about. What would you tell me? What questions are you going to ask?
First thing I'm going to ask is probably what you won't expect. What are you going to do about health care?
You're right. That wouldn't have been the first thing that I would ask, but that is certainly a big part of it. I will write that down.
Yes. So then the second thing I'm going to ask is what kind of dollars are pre-tax and after-tax in your life right now of that $1.4 million that you discussed?
And I gave you that, fortunately, for this equation, right? The $900,000 is in your 401k that's tax deferred, $250,000 is in an after-tax account, $250,000 is a bank in cash.
Okay. So you already have what we would have worked with you for, which is tax diversification.
Well, I hear that Joe guy talk about a Roth IRA on the radio. I don't have any of that stuff.
The money you have in that bank and that cash is after tax.
It is after tax, but it didn't grow tax-free.
It does not grow tax-free.
I get a 1099, though. It's not a lot of money every year.
If it's in that bank, it's not growing at all.
It's pretty much not.
That's right. So what do you want to do after work? What is your plan that you have right now? Are you guys going to travel in October?
Yep.
Are you going to? So have you worked out a retirement year budget?
We have not. What's that look like?
That looks like, for us, we would have liked to see a year ago work with you on a separate checking account where we would have put X amount of dollars. If you said we can live on $80,000.
What do you mean live on?
Live on, I mean pay your fixed expenses, like your car insurance, your house insurance.
Well, I told you I made $150,000 a year.
Sure.
So what's that have to do with what you're talking about?
Well, it means you're not going to be making that after October.
No, but what do I care about? Why do I don't have to replace the 150?
No.
What do I have to replace?
You have to replace whatever that fixed and social cost is going to be. Your standard of living shouldn't go down, and that's where we need to know what that amount's going to be.
All right. So your life after work. Think about this, folks, in the 5 critical elements. That's what I'm trying to walk Dean through. That is our process, right? He asked me where I wanted to go, and he didn't mean on a vacation. Right? What is our financial vision? What are we going to do in October? Are we going to sit at home, watch grass grow? Am I going to golf? Are we going to go to Italy? What are we going to do? It probably all depends on COVID, right? So
Yeah.
That's the financial vision. Number 2, right? We went to your life after work, right? And his question was, how much does it cost for me to be able to maintain my standard of living? It has nothing to do with the fact that I made $150,000 a year. Has nothing to do with that. Has to do with I need 100% of my standard of living. He mentioned the word fixed and social expenses. We've broken that down on many, many shows. And the third thing that he talked about was a retirement budget. Ideally, we have a year to help you train. We have many people who come in 2 years after they've already separated from the workforce. Right. And saying, hey, I thought I could do this. It's becoming a little bit more complex. Or now you're 70, you're 75. And you know what? I just don't want to do this anymore. Joe, I hear you guys can be a financial enhancement group, can be corporate trustees, and you're ready to take over. And we're ready to let you do that. Right. So that's the your life after work part. So we figured out what I need. Right. And I'm ready to go. Now what's next?
Now we're going to sit and lay out the plan for you as far as an income stream. And how we're going to do that is based off of that tax basis that you have. So you have pre-tax dollars, after-tax dollars, and you're telling me your budget is X. So we're going to try to maintain your budget within a particular desirable marginal federal tax rate. and we will bump you to that level. And then we will use after-tax dollars, the bank account, those kind of things, to supply any other needs that you might have.
So if I needed, so in this case, we're gonna always try to bump the top of the 12% bracket, which is roughly 105,000 with me being under 65, right? Somewhere inside of there. If I need $80,000, you're telling me that's okay, and you're even going to take more money?
If we can, because you have money in that 401k that's never been taxed.
Right. What if I need 130,000? What if I made 150 and my standard of living really is 130?
We're going to have to look really hard on how we can produce that kind of income.
Well, that's true. And we would look at people, and this is where you have to be very, very, very careful, folks. This is not about us in any way, shape, or form hoarding money, right? This is where you would hear us talk about a concept of retirement V for victory. Many times when people would look at this scenario, if you really needed more than what was obvious and able to generate, people would turn around and say, well, I'm going to take Social Security early. And that is generally a big mistake, especially with the asset base that you're looking at here, right? We would, assuming your health's in good order, we would probably delay that and explain to you that you're taking out a larger percentage than what we would normally feel comfortable with, but knowing that Social Security is coming, right? And again, it depends on how much is fixed and how much is social. This is very, very possible. But in your tax planning and that process that you just laid out, we're going to take the first two blocks of money on the marginal tax rate, the 10 and 12% from the IRA, and then the rest of the money is going to come from the bank account or the money that's after tax.
Correct.
Because we don't want to pay more federal income tax. I will tell you, folks, the difference between a successful retirement and a failed attempt can many times be not paying attention to the difference between the 12% and the 22% bracket. It just is what it is. We put way too much interest on what the statements say and the investment return we get every year without any acknowledgement of the tax rate we're in. People just seem to sign off and take it as it is. When you worked, when I made that 150 grand a year, it is indeed, I am stuck with what I made. The tax rate is the tax rate, and there's not a lot you can do, right? But once you retire, especially if you've done tax diversification, you can shift income in many, many ways to provide a much better future. So what else on the annual tax plan? We talked about the bracket bumping, which would be good. What else would we do looking at that? I had $150,000 worth of income, and I'm going to retire in October this year.
Right. Well, one, we'd want to see in that 401k plan, you have all those after or pre-tax dollars. So there is a thing where we can convert those dollars and stay within a particular bracket and now put that into a Roth account, because that stops the taxation of that 401k money. And we would do that systematically over a period of years.
So the income part, so you get two things that are here, right? So I made $150,000 this year, right? Which puts me below the threshold for a Roth contribution, which means I can now pull, because I'm over 50, right? I can now put $7,000 in an account for me and an account for my spouse.
Correct.
Right? So now I suddenly have $14,000 in an IRA that's never going to be taxed. Right?
Correct.
Now, the Roth conversion that you're talking about inside of the 401k has nothing to do with my income, has nothing to do with my age. The only thing we're stuck with is, does the plan offer it, right? If the plan doesn't have a 401k option, you're kind of stuck with it, right?
Yeah, the Roth option. Yeah.
Right. So when you go to retire, when you go to separate from work, would I then see about getting rid of the 401k, or would I do that before?
You could do either or, because a lot of plans at 59 and a half have what's called an in-service separation.
In-service non-hardship distribution. Don't forget those words.
Yeah.
So what's that mean?
That means that you're allowed to take the money out while you're continuing to work and then invest it somewhere else. Now, you're going to want to make sure that it rolls from a proper tax account to a proper tax account. So if it's all pre-tax, it's going to roll into an IRA. If you did have the option between pre and after tax, part of it would go to a Roth, and part of it go to a traditional IRA.
And we do that because of the investment options and choices that are in there. But if you go back to the segment I did before hiring a financial advisor, you'll hear me talk about the conversations of fees and expenses. I would never tell you to roll a 401k out to go buy an annuity product. That is crazy, in my opinion. So you've got to contrast it with where it is to where it's going as to whether or not this is a good answer for you. And again, make sure that people document why they believe this is in your best interest. Have them put it in writing. You know, that's part of our written process and part of why we do it, to explain why that would occur. So we went through and we talked about how much money you needed for standard of living. It had nothing to do with your income. We talked about how we were going to take money out of a certain account because of the bracket bumping, right? How much we were going to be able to do a Roth conversion. That's the annual tax plan because you're still working this year. And in theory, next year you're not working, so you can't do any more contributions, right? But we can get that done. We're also going to look, because this could be your highest income tax year, we're going to find out if you're a charitable giver or not. Right? If you're giving money and you're going to be able to live on 50 grand a year, right? And you're now making 150, this may be the year to preload some of your itemized deductions, right? It's what we would call the double stack. May also be time to be able to look at a donor advised fund. So there's a lot of this stuff. There's a reason why it's hard to do in a 12-minute segment, right? I mean, there's a lot of things that we go through in this process, but if you follow those 5 critical elements down the rabbit hole, right? The financial vision. This is why I trademarked this. It's why I taught it at Purdue for 7 years. We start with the family focused process. It's about you. It's not about what the brokerage firm wants to offer. It's not about a product somebody wants to sell. You walk in with a clean slate and you say, here's my stuff. And the advisor should look at you and go, where do you want to go? What's it look like? And you may want to give more money to charity than you spend on yourself. You may want to make sure you don't run out at 92. Just great, very different examples, but they're there. Then the second is, what's your life after work going to be? And we've got a bunch of different processes under that to help you get to where you need to go. The second is the annual tax plan. It's got to be done. It's got to be proactive, and you need to pay attention to what's going on. The third is the investment playbook. That part's done weekly. It's what we get paid entirely for, is that part. The planning is what we do as part of the benefit. But it's also the one we communicate to you weekly if so desired. The fourth one is life happens. It's the good and bad and ugly of life. There are going to be things that pop up, guys, that are good and bad and really bad. You know, what do you do in those periods of time that are just not normal, that you're only going to deal with once or twice or maybe not at all in your whole life, you know, that we have to deal with on a monthly basis, just part of having a big firm. And then last but not least is the legacy plan. Who's really going to work with your attorney and your CPA to help make sure that your estate plan matches what you want? That's how this case works. That's what Dean and Grant and Aaron and Jamie will do for you and the other people on our team. Go to yourlifeafterwork.com. Get signed up for a Next Steps meeting. Look forward to meeting you soon.